Greetings all, hope this finds you well as always. We're now back in the machine shop for the latest update on where we're up to and what we're on with. Sadly, there's not much to report on the rectification front this week, mainly because there hasn't been much progress, unfortunately. Barry Neeson's taking a well-earned break and Mark's been nicked for the washouts and pre-gala prep. So at the moment, there isn't really that much progress from last week, but we're not that far off being finished there. There's a few bits and pieces yet to do, but the motion work is well within sight of the finishing line. We're very happy with that. So at the moment, there's mostly jobs that are coming in to replace that. First up of which is these 8 Carriage Crowns here. These are being done for carriage and wagon. What we've got to do is they've been part machined already. They've been you can see how the bearing here has been machined to the journal diameter. That's already been done. This ring gauge, incidentally, I've just turned up today just out of a scrap bush. It's been turned to the journal diameter, so I can just verify that the crowns have actually been machined correctly. And then what we've got to do is you add an oil clearance into the side here. It's called a Collett wedge. It was an idea invented by Mr. Collett of the Great Western Railway. The idea is that a clearance is machined into the white metal here and here. And then, because of course, when this thing's running, it's actually, well, it's currently upside down for how it would normally be. The axle will be here, but this brass will be on top of the axle rather than being underneath it. And then here, there will be a felt oil pad. As the axle revolves, it will pick up oil from that felt pad and it will draw it into the bearing. This is the quite interesting bit that always intrigues me. You have to remember that weight is not being borne by metal-to-metal contact. It's actually being borne by an oil film between the journal and the bearing. And the Collett wedge, as it was called here, allowed that oil film to easily form and do its job. So that's the first job we've got to do. I mean, this isn't the best drawing in the world, but this should show some of the things I'm talking about. If I just grab a pointer, we'll use a feeler gauge. This green measurement here, 2 3/16 is the journal diameter, and you will see there's a second orange measurement there of 2 1/4 inches. Now this is a radius, not a diameter measurement, before anyone gets really confused, but you can see how there's that difference there. Now, the trick is that when you machine that, you increase the radius that your tool's cutting, but you also raise or lower, I say raise because it's how it'll be done on the borer, you also raise the centre height of the spindle from the work. So you raise your spindle 1/67 thou, but you also increase the diameter it's cutting by 1/16 to create this clearance, this clearance on the shoulders here and here, which we can then machine in. So anyhow, that's a little job. Oh, we've also got to put a radius onto the outer edges as well. So that's another little job that's come in. So that's waiting to be done. I've just been looking at it today. I've had a bit of a planning day today, actually catching up with a lot of how we're going to do stuff, what we're going to do stuff, where we're going to do stuff, where we're going to do stuff. And another bit of planning we've had is this almighty thing. We have a drawhook here, which the end of which needs threading with a 5 TPI thread. Now then, Bungles, how are we doing? Here he is, the one and only Andrew Jeffrey, ladies and gentlemen.
Do you know something about LNR rubbers?
I know many things about LNR rubbers. Would you like some?
Yes, please.
Certainly. Let's have this on the video. There we go. How many would you like?
I would like 4, please.
Certainly.
29.
1, 2, 3, 4. There you go. 4 rubbers, skillfully machined. Oh, I'll find that one in a minute. You got it? Right, rub the cream into my
I didn't realise you were
videoing. No, I am. Don't worry about it. It's okay. You'll just make a starring appearance on the video. Yeah. There you go. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. He's available for adoption. He comes with his own bed, bowl, blanket and feeding bowl. There we go. Right, Andrew Jeffrey. Those rubbers, incidentally, were machined by young Tom Goulding the other week. So just to show we are actually using them. Right, anyway, where were we? Yeah, draw hooks. That's it. Draw hooks. Right, this draw hook needs a thread putting on it here. This dummy shaft here is actually a sample of the thread we need to put on. This has been made as a gauge for producing the nuts. Now, the draw hook was machined so far in the Mostana lathe. The only problem is we've hit problems with threading in the Mostana lathe because it's actually a metric machine. We've discovered that setting up imperial threading on it's slightly challenging. And so my idea is that we have another lathe there, the Harrison, on which setting up imperial threading is actually dead easy. But the problem is, how on earth are we going to hold this in the Harrison? And this is where this piece of inspired insanity's come in. We have a large angle plate, which I know fits into the chuck on the Harrison, because we've had it in there before. What we've got is a slug that goes through the drawhook here. The idea is that slug's going to have a hole drilled through the middle of it, where a bolt will go through that slot in the angle plate there. That slug can then go in, bolt through it. We'll then put another piece of steel plate on top, bolt through there, pick up on another 2 bolts there and there through those slots, and that should hold it absolutely solid. It shouldn't escape, and then we can have that set up in the spindle and machine it. That's the plan anyway. Behind it, we have a wee bit more progress. We also have a random gauge frame fitting. I haven't the faintest idea where that's come from. Craig's been in again, my regular volunteer, and he's made another blank for a little M pin for Repton, as we can see on the left there. So that's another good bit of progress. Another job that's landed in today are these 2 safety valves. They're off the 9F. That's tomorrow's excitement. The one and only Doug Foster, who's one of the Sunderland Fosters, of course. He's going to strip them down tomorrow, and then I can put them into a machine, measure them up first, and then put them into a machine and machine them back to the required tolerances. So there we are. That's yet another job that's coming. We're keeping busy at the moment. We really are. And then Brian's been in again today, and he's in again tomorrow, and I'm going to have to find him some more work tomorrow because he's worked very well today. He's currently working on making these new gauge frame fittings for the crane. This job's pretty much reaching its conclusion. It's been keeping him busy for quite a few weeks now, but I'm sure you'll agree he's been doing an absolutely smashing job there with those there. They're lovely, absolutely spot on. Now, there's nothing actually wrong with the ones that are in the crane. They're still perfectly serviceable. They're just a bit battered, and the hexagons have gone a bit, and some of the threads maybe aren't as top quality as they could be. And so, while the crane's in bits, having other work done to its jib and whatnot, we decided that we'd go through those and give all the gauge frame fittings a complete overhaul, just basically start again. So anyway, that's been Brian's job for the last couple of weeks, and so he's been on with those, and he's just finished those 4 today. He's got a few more to do tomorrow, and then he's actually jobbed up, so I've got to sort him out another job. Don't know what that'll be yet. We'll think on that one. I'm sure I'll have a great and wonderful thought of something he can do. Certainly a man of his calibre. He's not going to be short of work as long as I'm running this shop. And then finally, another job that's done and ready to go, and is probably going to be collected any minute, possibly with a special guest appearance by the one and only Sam Cumber, are these wonderful things. Now, we saw bits of these last week. There's the mortal remains of one of them here. These are actually the adjustment screws for the blade alignment for Carriage and Wagon's bandsaw. They got very worn over the years and have finally expired. And so last week, I waved a couple of worn pieces of metal around and said what I was planning to do with them. Well, this week, we've actually got them finished. So what we have is this thread here screws into the actual body of the bandsaw itself. This brass thumb nut is just a lock. The shaft is, of course, knurled on the end, so you can wind it in and out as well. And then the blade runs against this pad here. This pad is also sitting into a bearing, or there's a bearing sitting into that shaft. As you can see, a conventional rubber seal ball bearing race. Now, the only thing I've deliberately done is where the blade rubs against that pad, if it's soft, will wear away quite quickly. And so I came up with the idea of make the pads out of stainless steel. The idea being that since stainless steel work hardens, where the blade rubs against the pad, it'll harden and sort of wear less quickly. But I won't have problems with having to press hard things like bearing races into hard things like pads made of a carbon steel are heated and quenched. And so they have been, well, they were actually shrunk onto the bearings. I simply machined the holes slightly undersized and then heated them up and just popped the bearings in. And then this other shaft here is a press fit into the bearing, which, to be honest, because I'm naturally a bit cautious, also had a dose of Loctite on it. And so there we are, there's 4 of them ready to go. For reasons best known to the designer of said bandsaw, 2 of them are right-hand thread and 2 of them are left-hand thread. So that in turn led, as I mentioned in my last video, to me having to spend some money with Tracy Tools and splash out on a set of left-hand taps and dies, which arrived, and I can also say were an absolute delight to use. Brilliant tools, did an absolute spot-on job, and very quick, as I said last week, very quick delivery, very high-quality gear, very sensible prices. basically can't say fairer than that. So a big thumbs up to Tracy Tools there. Thank you very much indeed. Absolutely spot on. So anyway, folks, that's where we're up to, and that's where we're at. Something slightly different this week with a special guest appearance by Andrew. But, yeah, we're still busy, and we're still going to be busy for the foreseeable. So anyway, folks, I hope you found it educational and informative as always. Take care, and I'll see you around.